to use their social media platforms to promote their agendas. And there's so much greenwashing that's happening and so much narrative around trying to make consumers really think that they're the problem when really the industry is just trying to displace blame.
Aloha everyone, and welcome to Justaposition, the podcast where we explore mental health, vulnerability, and personal life journeys with people you know and love. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already, and listen to new episodes that are out every single Thursday. Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm so excited for today's guest because this is truly a world changer, someone who is making shit happen, just incredibly impactful, helping protect the world. I was able to meet her when I was at Web Summit, which if you guys watched the previous podcast episode, you will have seen the crazy stories from Web Summit. But with no further introduction, everyone say hello to Sophia. Thank you so much for coming on.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to this. And oh my God, I can't believe the last time we saw each other was at Web Summit.
I know, right? It feels like forever ago. I mean, so much has happened in your life since then. It's been so cool to just follow on Instagram. Basically, the way that we first connected, it was on the bus, right? To the dinner, right?
Yeah, I was walking by and I saw you and I was like, wait, I think that we follow each other on Instagram because we had worked together previously because you guys were supporting nonprofits and climate orgs, which was amazing.
Yeah, it was super cool to be able to connect in person with you first because it was just a random shuttle ride to this dinner that we were both mutually invited to, and it was oh my gosh, wait, you're here. It was amazing. And for anyone who might not know who you are, the work you do, I would love for you to just introduce yourself.
Yeah, of course. Hi, I'm Sophia. I am a junior at Stanford studying science, technology, and society. I'm the founder of Climate Cardinals, which is a youth-led nonprofit with 9,000 student volunteers across 41 countries. And our goal is to translate climate resources into over 100 languages. And I also represent the U.S. as the youngest person on the UN's Youth Advisory Group on climate change.
Wow. Incredible, you guys. It's seriously so cool just to be able to chat with you on here, and thank you again for coming on because I know you're crazy busy. Literally right before this, you were talking about how you're swamped in studies, going to classes while managing everything else that you do, which is absolutely insane. So thank you again for coming on. I'm really excited to kind of jump into this conversation because I feel like you have such insightful views and perspectives on not only the global climate crisis, but just the way that the world is kind of handling it. And, it's amazing to be able to kind of speak to the source when it comes to people who are actually on the ground, and especially someone so young, because you're 21, right?
Yeah,
21?
I just turned 21.
Oh my gosh. Oh, happy belated. No, seriously, it's so cool to be able to talk to someone who is young and actually like I said, making shit happen. So before we get into the juicy questions, I want to just ask you a few rapid fire questions as we do with all of our guests. First, I need to know, what is your go-to coffee order? Because I know that you definitely have to drink coffee to go through your life.
I like black coffee.
Yes.
Just plain black coffee.
That's the best. Same here. I fully support. Okay, great. Next, what is your newest hobby? The thing that you've just picked up recently that you're oh my God, I really enjoy this. I want to keep doing it.
Do people still have hobbies? No, I'm kidding. I've actually been painting a lot. Wait, let me see if I have.
Really?
I had on one of my travels, I got these little boxes.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah, so every time I go places, I bring one of these mini paint sets, and I will absent-mindedly paint. Here's one that I did.
So
they're actually
cute.
super fun. Wait, that was such a good question. This is my new hobby, is painting these little things.
I love it. Those are so freaking cute. And I can vouch for painting is such a fun little hobby. I mean, I don't have the artistic level that you do to paint freehand. I just do the little paint by number things that you can order online.
Oh, I love those. Yeah.
And then when you finish it, it looks like you're some masterful artist when, it's really You're not. But like, I love the little mini sets that you have. That's so cute. Okay. Painting we support. I also want to ask and this is a difficult one, so it's okay if it's hard to sum this up, but what are 3 words you would use to describe the current climate crisis?
I would say existential, hope, and progress.
I love that. Especially because I think, and I want to get into this later. Sometimes it's more associated with more negative words rather than like positive words. So I love like hope and progress. I think that's super cool. And similarly, what are 3 words you would use to describe the Dalai Lama? Because you got to speak to the Dalai Lama, which when I saw that on Instagram, I was like, oh my God, you just officially became the coolest person in the world. How would you describe him?
Inspiring, profound, and funny.
I love it. It's so cool. Like, seriously, what a surreal moment. I can like only imagine how freaking cool that was. Like,
oh my God, no, I know. I was like, this is one of those things I'm going to be telling my kids about. And I mean, we can go more into it later about how that came about and what happened. But it was so crazy. I could barely compose myself.
I know, and the way like you asked the question so confidently too, and I'm like, I would be like shaking in my boots. I would be freaking out. Like, but you so like,
oh my God, and I was like the last person to go, and so I like in my head I was like not listening to anything happening beforehand. I completely blanked out, and then I kept rehearsing in my head when it was my time. I was like, okay, I better not stutter or mess this up or anything.
No, you did great. And guys, make sure you go follow her Instagram because you can see the video there where she was able to talk to the Dalai Lama. What is your Instagram, by the way, for the world to know?
You're so sweet. It's at Sophia Kianni.
Yes. Awesome. Yeah. Go check out the video there. It's great. Okay. So I want to like jump into these questions. You were able to like tell us a little bit about what you do for work. You know, all the work that you do specifically for, you know, whether it's the United Nations, you know, climate crisis, but there's like so much even beyond like Climate Cardinals and that you're involved in. But I'm kind of interested to know like what first drove you to be really passionate about all of the work that you do, and especially from such a young age. Like, what was really like the first thing that kind of inspired you to be motivated to want to make a difference in the world?
Yeah, totally. So my story really stems from my Iranian American heritage. Both of my parents grew up in Iran, and they came to the United States to pursue education. And so growing up, I would visit Iran in the summers, and I was struck by how awful the air pollution was there. Mm-hmm. Thousands of people are hospitalized every single day because of the air pollution. And I also learned that temperatures in the Middle East were rising more than twice the global average. So my relatives were really on the front lines of the climate crisis. But when I approached them about the issue, I realized they had never heard about terms like climate change or global warming. They didn't really know anything. And I did more research. I found that only 2% of Iranian students could properly explain the greenhouse gas effect. Some very, very low number, like 2 or 5%. And so I worked with my mom to translate climate resources into Farsi so that I could teach my relatives about climate change, which is how I came up with the idea for Climate Cardinals, because I realized there was really a lack of climate resources available in languages outside of English.
Mm-hmm. Which is so cool. And like, yeah, describe what Climate Cardinals does as well, because it's literally like exactly what you were able to do individually, like on a massive scale, right?
Yeah, which is what I think is so amazing. What really started out as me and my mom doing these translations grew to me and a couple of my friends, and then it continued to expand to now we have over 9,000 student volunteers who do translations for us in exchange for community service hours, and we've been able to translate over 750,000 words of resources into over 100 languages over the past few years, and we've partnered with amazing organizations and institutions, like we've done translations for UNICEF and the UN Environmental Program. So it's been a really incredible and fulfilling experience to watch what was really just like a childhood project grow into a full-fledged organization with all these incredible young people. And we're actually now expanding and growing our executive team for the first time in like 3 years and onboarding new directors, which is super exciting. But yeah, I mean, I think that it's so important because it really highlights that when you see injustices happening in your community, that really is the best way to tackle an issue where it all came about so organically. And now I've been able to spend the past few years really upscaling a solution that I developed and engaging thousands of young people in the same work.
Yeah, taking what you learned from your, individual community and really expanding it to the global community, I think is so cool. And obviously, like any work that changes the world for the better is obviously good. But when you, like you said, are able to upscale that into so many more, like 100 countries, was it 100 countries or 100 languages?
So 100 languages in 40 countries.
That's what it was. 100, languages, 40 countries. Like, that is so incredible. That's something that you individually were so passionate about from a young age is able to expand to just that scale. It's amazing. And especially even with you, not only because for United Nations, you're representing not only Iran, but also United States. Was there 3 countries that you're technically representing?
Yeah, so I technically represent the North American region, so like the US, Canada, but then I also am like the only member representing like the Middle East, specifically through Iran, and I'm the youngest person, so they really had a great time selecting me for the advisory panel.
That's so freaking cool. And what a surreal moment for you. Was it something that you were like expecting or were kind of like working hard to get to, or did it come like completely as a surprise?
Oh my God, it was such a surprise. So what happened was it was like 6 months after I started Climate Cardinals. We had like gone viral on TikTok, which I think is how you found us through this viral recruitment video we made. And so things were really snowballing. It was so exciting. And then I got this super random email where this person was like, hey, I'm recruiting for the UN Youth Advisory Group on climate change. I think that you could be a good fit. You've been nominated by one of our partners. Would you be interested? And I obviously was like, oh my God, yes, of course. And then when I was ultimately selected, it was just absolutely insane.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. Congratulations again. Like that's amazing. And I think representing in such a positive way, like the power of youth activism, and how, because I really am just like Gen Z is already changing the world, but it's going to make such a huge difference. Like when a lot of Gen Z like become of age and start getting into political positions and offices, and you're representing that. And I think that's incredible. I'm also like interested because within the climate crisis conversation, there are so many different voices. There's so many different things being spread. There's so many counter arguments and controversy and all this kind of stuff. And it can make it a little bit overwhelming and I think disorienting for people, individual people, to know how they can make a difference and what they can do. So I'm curious to know, like, what do you think is the most harmful piece of misinformation that you think is impacting the climate crisis right now?
I would say that I think a lot of the conversations that are framed around the climate crisis can be pretty alienating and unproductive. So I've heard it range from you can't do anything about climate change, your action is completely meaningless, all the way to you have to be vegan, you have to stop flying, like you have to be like a perfect person. And I really am an advocate for progress over perfection, but also educating people on the fact that the notion of the personal carbon footprint was like really something created and popularized by the oil and gas industry to displace blame from their own industry. Yes. And so I think it's very harmful to attack people and to tell them that they're the source of the climate crisis when it really isn't the case. But I think that education is really important in the sense that we can make people aware that the biggest impact that they can have is through getting engaged in political processes. So whenever people ask me, what can I do? I always say, go vote. Because the people who you are voting into office are the ones who ultimately have the most amount of power over passing progressive climate legislation that will actually allocate funding and capacity and resources towards making these proposals that scientists say we're in desperate need of a reality. And so avoiding telling people there's nothing you can do, but also avoiding telling them that you have to do all these things and be a perfect person in order to make an impact. Like really meeting people where they're at and being honest in the sense that like there are certain things you can do and they are very impactful, but it really centers around this idea of systemic change.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. And I love that you specifically focused on voting, because it's so frustrating sometimes to see like how convoluted the conversation can come when it's relating to like individual action and what difference people can make. Because I think a lot of times people tend to focus on the wrong things. In my personal opinion, like so much, like conversation around like using plastic straws versus, reusable straws and like, which,
Yeah.
isn't, of course that's a productive thing to be talking about. But when so much of the attention is focused on the wrong elements of actual individual, action, as compared to what you were saying, voting, like bringing people into office that have actually prioritized helping change the climate crisis, helping make the world into a better place for people, for animals, for nature, everything like that. I think that is so much more impactful and more productive of a conversation to be having. So I love that you touched on that, because I think it is kind of overlooked. And I also love that you were saying that the corporate agenda tends to focus on the wrong elements that makes people feel more isolated or makes people shoulder the responsibility of the climate crisis, which is ridiculous. Sometimes when I see these conversations happening of like everyone kind of pointing to the wrong solutions for the climate crisis, I wonder like, is this like from the top down thing? Because it feels very icky, like this is being motivated by a greedy corporate agenda rather than an actual productive conversation. Do you think that's true in a lot of the cases when it comes to what's being talked about for how we can make a difference for the climate crisis?
Yeah, because it's really sad. Even at COP27, like the UN has an annual climate change conference. Last year, there were hundreds of lobbyists from the oil and gas industry at the biggest and most important climate conference in the world, which I thought was insane. And it's even like when you're liaising with these people, you see all these opportunities where these lobbyists are really trying to get people to use their social media platforms to promote their agendas. And there's so much greenwashing that's happening and so much narrative around trying to make consumers really think that they're the problem when really the industry is just trying to displace blame. Even there are statistics that say like 100 companies are responsible for 71% of the world's industrial emissions. Clearly, if you have this concentrated group of entities that are disproportionately responsible for so much of the planetary destruction, if we were able to mobilize everyone to direct our outrage and anger at that group of people, things would start happening. And that's why there's such a concentrated effort to keep us fragmented, to keep the focus on different arenas instead of really getting people to commit to one agenda, which is like phase out fossil fuels or something like that. That's really productive and putting in energy into, we should be investing in renewable energy. We should be investing in upskilling workers so that they're prepared to take on green jobs. These are the agendas that I think are really important and productive to focus on rather than getting caught up in the weeds of things.
Absolutely. That's so well put. And I think that's really insightful, specifically when it comes to the greenwashing conversation, because I know so many people on social media are aware like of what greenwashing is. But I think the most harmful and destructive aspect of greenwashing is, like you were saying, representatives from these corporate companies kind of appealing to public expectations of like involvement, whether it be going to COP or whether it be, making statements about environmental responsibility rather than actually implementing change. And I would even say that like, while, outrage and public conversation is absolutely necessary in making a difference, I think for a lot of these like oil companies and just companies who are really destroying the earth, they don't really care. It's like they don't care about like public outcry or opinion. The change that needs to happen needs to come from legislation.
Regulation.
Yes, exactly. Like political leaders who actually care about making a change when it comes to the climate problem and not just doing it to pacify the public. I don't know if you agree.
I completely agree with you. Even when we look at the holdup of key pieces of climate legislation, like the Inflation Reduction Act, through the Senate and Congress, it really was only happening because of like one or two members of Congress. Like one or two people had the ability to block extremely important legislation, and then finally like we were able to get the Inflation Reduction Act passed. But there have been so many instances where there's this slight hiccup or something isn't able to get through, and it's just because of one or two people. And so when you think about that, if we're able to flip those districts, if we're able to flip other districts, so we do have a majority of people who are in office who are committed to passing progressive and meaningful climate legislation, then we will be in a position where we are able to make meaningful change happen. And focusing our energy and attention on something like that that has the potential to make such a huge difference is so much more productive in my mind than these other side conversations that we often get caught up in that really involve shaming specific individuals. When shaming specific individuals as opposed to shaming an entire industry or an entire corporation that is so much worse disproportionately, I think that using our energy on something like that is much more productive. And also, I think that just focusing on solutions-oriented conversation as well. Like, even if you do think that an individual is not operating in the most climate conscious or sustainable manner, instead of telling them they're a terrible person, pointing them towards resources or letting them know ways that they could be more climate conscious, that is so much more productive than just flat out just trying to make someone like feel bad and then they're going to be combative. It comes down to the same logic with climate deniers. People always ask me, like, what do you do when people just straight up don't believe in climate change? And often my response is, those are some people I really don't engage with. If somebody is so caught up in their ways that they will refuse to believe the science and will not listen to me, will belittle me, it's not a productive use of my time and energy to focus on those conversations. I'd rather talk to people who are apathetic about the climate crisis and who are really looking for resources to make a difference.
Yeah. Absolutely. Oh, I love the solution-oriented focus. I think that's so important because, I mean, I could talk forever about moral superiority when it comes to like specifically the online space, but especially in relation to, you know, the climate crisis and conversations that are happening there. But I think, yeah, being solution-oriented, combating misinformation with productive information about how you can be better, how we can be better when it comes to these issues, I completely agree. And that's something I actually wanted to ask about as well, because I think I've seen a lot of conversation online around how negative attention towards the climate crisis is counterproductive to making lasting change towards protecting the earth. And I'm personally someone who always believes in positive reinforcement as opposed to negative reinforcement when it comes to, well, really just anyone as individuals, let alone social issues. But as someone who is in the space, I'm curious to hear your thoughts, like, and specifically because you said the words like hope and progress. You know, there's so much of the doomsday negative reinforcement approach that people use to push people into action. But do you think positive reinforcement is better?
I think a mix is very important. Christina Figueres, she was like one of the key architects of the UN Paris Climate Agreement. She's like one of my heroes in the climate movement. She has a podcast that I was on recently, and it's called Outrage and Optimism. And that to me, actually, like as I'm thinking about like if there was two words I would use, outrage and optimism, I think are perfect.
Yes.
Because that you have to be able to convey to people, listen, like we need to get shit done. That's the reality, and things are not getting done. There is very little progress in a lot of arenas. People are dragging their feet, and you should be outraged, especially as young people. We should be outraged because this is our future that's at stake. Already young people are experiencing rates of the climate crisis at a rate 3 times higher than our grandparents. And so this is a crisis that is urgent, and we need to convey that sense of urgency. But we also need to realize that instilling this sense of fear in people can be paralyzing, and only focusing on how things are going wrong is also a very untrue narrative, because there are people like myself who spend every single day working on climate solutions and are working every single day to make the public aware, to come up with actionable steps that people can take. And so there should also be a sense of optimism in the sense that there are scientists, there are policymakers, there are students who every single day are actively engaged on this issue. And so trying to balance those two emotions will leave us, in my opinion, in a good spot to compel people to take action, but also make them aware that we are working towards a solution. Not all hope is lost.
Outrage and optimism. That's such a good way of putting it. I think, yeah, I completely agree with everything you said, because it's sad watching a lot of like young people kind of succumb to the paralyzing nature of the negativity around the climate crisis. Like I see this on TikTok a lot, where like in comment sections or videos where people are like, oh, the world's going to die in like 20 years anyway. Like, screw it, which is like really sad, because there's so much positive work and positive change that is being made and it's showing up. But I think on the flip side of that as well, I think only focusing on like the positivity can lead to just like inaction. Because I have personally haven't been to COP, the climate summit, but some of the criticisms I've heard of it is that it's a lot of self-congratulatory behavior and kind of empty promises, all focused around like this positive movement towards making an impact with the climate, yet there's not enough outrage to actually push people to act, and actually make critical changes. So that balance, I think is really cool. And you're someone who has been to COP before, and along with other youth activists who have, talked about their experience. Like what has your experience been?
Yeah, very much a sense of outrage and optimism, I would say. It was very interesting. I was very lucky to be given this role at the last COP to be a keynote speaker at the high-level plenary. So I got to address all of these world leaders and to speak directly to them. And I given that like I am a UN advisor, I advise Secretary General Antonio Guterres, I quoted him in my speech because he said that quite plainly, many of the leaders today are lying because they are saying one thing but doing another when it comes to climate, especially at these climate conferences. They come, they make these commitments, but then they fail to deliver on the promise, like the broken promise for climate finance for developing nations. And so I took that opportunity to give a pretty edgy speech. And that is why I think young people are so important to these conversations, is because, yes, these politicians often get caught in these loops of self-congratulation. And unless you're bringing activists into these folds and having us be pushing them to make progress on the agenda, I don't think that progress is going to be made. And even when we look at one of the biggest things that happened as a result of the COP that was incredible was, for the first time in every single COP, we had the first commitment to create this loss and damage fund, which was basically a commitment to give countries funding for the loss and damages that have resulted because of the climate crisis, which was incredible and something that climate scientists and policymakers and advocates have wanted for years. And that was the main thing that I focused all of my speeches on. That was the main thing that most of the youth climate activists I worked with really pushed as an agenda point. So it was so phenomenal to see that as an outcome of the COP. And I truly do think it should be celebrated as a success, while also acknowledging that until it's like an empty bucket, but until that bucket has been filled, we can't really self-congratulate or celebrate too early. So looking at instances like that where it's like we took a step forward, but we're not going to fully celebrate until we see the end result, that to me is an important conversation, to keep narratives like that in the fold, and also to recognize that that's the impact that youth climate activists can have. Like we can push these politicians, we can deliver these edgy speeches, and then also get the media and the public on our side to continue applying public pressure.
Oh, yes. I mean, that's why I love you and other youth climate activists, because you guys do not give a fuck about what people are going to think. And that's exactly the type of energy we need, because I think, for a lot of people in positions of power, the politics of just exchanges and communication, all that has become so muddied with apathy. And I think we need people like you to come in and call people out, and just be like, you guys aren't doing enough. You need to take action. You need to do more. And that's so cool as well that was the result of COP, because I think one of the challenging things I've had when I've tried to stress the importance of the climate crisis, because I grew up in an area that everyone was climate change deniers and everyone was like super against it. And I always believed in it, but I was like, I don't know how to communicate this, because, there's the approach of like, well, if climate change is happening, it seems fine around me, nothing seems wrong. And actively denying that it's like, even, say for, people who live in the US, we're not aware of the other regions and other countries around the world that are currently right now and for years have been, the victims of some of the earliest onset signs of the climate crisis. And we're just actively kind of ignoring them. And especially from a corporate standpoint, we're there. How do you say it? We're basically like corporate companies are kind of using other regions and countries around the world as like the worst treatment of whatever, we're currently enjoying in our capitalist state. I don't know how to describe it, but basically we're kind of fucking up other countries in an effort to make it seem like we're fine on this end. So I think that's so cool that was the result of what happened at COP, and that it was that productive in that way. That's awesome.
Yeah, because one of the biggest things that has been a learning for me, honestly, in my foray into the climate movement over the last few years has been just how important it is to look at climate through this justice-oriented lens, where I learned that people of color were being disproportionately impacted by the climate crisis, marginalized communities, low-income communities, even women. Like 80% of climate refugees are women. And when I was learning these different statistics, it just made me so much more aware of when we're coming up with climate solutions, it is so important to put those who are most vulnerable at the heart of what we're doing, to give them the funding and capacity and resources they need, because otherwise that's why for so long the environmental movement was seen as like this white, privileged, uppity movement where it was like only the people who could afford to care about this problem were the ones talking about it, because people had so many immediate concerns and needs. But really being able to articulate and tie like the climate crisis is a human rights crisis. Even when we look at what's happening in my parents' home country of Iran with like the uprising of these incredible young women, all of that is exacerbated by climate change. Like there are droughts happening in the Middle East right now that are contributing to political instability, and that's obviously a symptom of the climate crisis. So these are all interlinked and they are impacting those who are most vulnerable. And that's also really important. That's why we need those perspectives to be representative at climate discussions. We can't just have it be a situation where it's white, wealthy, older, privileged people who are monopolizing all these discussions. You need the people from the front lines. You need the young people who are going to be disproportionately impacted, because we're able to convey a sense of urgency that these other people are not.
Yes. Yep. Exactly. You literally put into example perfectly what I was failing to say before. Exactly. Like people who are being most impacted, like those are the people we need to give a voice. And I think social media has been also like really incredible at doing that, at highlighting the human rights issues that are coming because of climate change all around the world. And I know that's specifically what you've utilized, not only, in championing your own perspective and your own voice, but also for Climate Cardinals as well. And I'd love if you can go into a little bit more detail about Climate Cardinals, because I'd love for everyone who's listening and watching to learn about how important it is, and also what way they can help make an impact as well.
Oh my God, yeah. So Climate Cardinals is recruiting for our executive team. So if anyone's interested, you should definitely apply or shoot us an email if you envision a way of working with us. But specifically for Climate Cardinals, we have really been different from other organizations and nonprofits in that we do see the value of using social media. I've talked to so many large climate organizations and conservation organizations, and when I tell them, like, one of my biggest pieces of advice, if they really want to resonate with the public, is like to get on TikTok, they think I'm crazy. But then I explain to them that Climate Cardinals wouldn't even exist if it were not for this one viral TikTok video, which is the one I'm pretty sure that led to us meeting too. It wouldn't have existed because this one viral video that reached hundreds of thousands of people ended up compelling thousands of young people to sign up to work with us. And so that changed my life, and it changed the life of every single person who currently works for Climate Cardinals. And recognizing that we do live in a new frontier where social impact is completely correlated with social media has been a revolutionary way of thinking about if we want to utilize resources effectively, we also need to make the public aware of if you're doing amazing things, but you're doing it in silence, then how are we supposed to motivate and inspire and compel people? And that's what I've been trying to tell more activists to do is all my friends are doing such incredible work, but they don't use Instagram or TikTok. And I'm trying to explain to them, if you're able to get out there and share the work that you're doing with the world, the access that opens up to have partnerships, to get funding for the work that you're doing, to reach people, it's phenomenal. And I was that person where I didn't join Instagram until like my senior year of high school. I was so anti-social media. I didn't see the point of it. But I think when you're using social media specifically with the goal of creating impact and sharing important messages with the world, like what we're doing with this conversation, I think it's super important, and it is a new way of looking at how can we spread important messages.
Oh, I love that. I completely agree. I remember we had like a brief kind of like discussion about this on the shuttle ride at Web Summit, but yeah,
iconic shuttle ride.
I know, right? Forever cemented in history. I was able to give a TED Talk talking about how important it is for people to use social media as a way to not only like champion social change, but also kind of like the shift that I think is so important that we need to have when it comes to the way that we even think about social media in the first place. And I think for people like you and activists and people who want to make a positive difference in the world, I think it is difficult with social media because it does seem like it makes it, I think, a little bit uncomfortable initially for people because it's like, well, if you're doing something good and you're wanting to help others, that should come from your true desire and not from a desire to like post about it online, which I completely agree. But like you were saying, it's like there are so many people doing incredible things in complete silence. And I think you're, missing out on an opportunity to inspire so many other people to do the same and motivate them. I know, like, seeing your content and seeing other climate activists that I would have never known about before, seeing their work makes me want to make a difference and really pushes me to do that. And I think that's, the power of social media in the first place. And I wouldn't have even guessed you weren't on social media, like, and now you are, and like using it for Climate Cardinals. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah, exactly. And I do think it's because for so long, social media has been framed in a very frivolous context, quite honestly, I think. Like, I looked at social media and I thought, well, why would I get on Instagram and just like share photos of me like looking cute at brunch? Like, I didn't really get it. But like now I'm like, okay, actually I love sharing photos of me looking cute at brunch. Like, I love showing what I'm doing with my friends. But I also love being able to actually have a platform so that my message to the world and these important things that I'm learning and saying, they don't just get thrown into a void where nobody is able to actually act on it. And so getting on social media was a huge point in my like, I guess, a journey as an activist, because it allowed me to reach so many more people. And like the UN found me, I'm pretty sure, through that TikTok video, like a Forbes reporter who ended up writing a piece that also opened up so many doors for like funders and other opportunities, found me through that TikTok. And so I think thinking about ways that you can utilize social media for impact in these intentional, thoughtful manners can be an extremely great opportunity to open doors. But I do say that while also making sure that it is prefaced with, it's important to do the work. Like, I don't think that it is enough to just like be on social media creating content if you're not creating content about the work you're doing behind the scenes. So when I post on social media, I'm doing it through the lens of like, oh, I'm an advisor to like the American Lung Association. I attend briefings with them. I go and testify before the EPA. And so I wrote an op-ed for The Hill last week, which was basically like explaining why I thought like the nuances of different regulations like needed to be changed. But that was juxtaposed alongside like hours and hours of work beforehand where I was actually like being an advisor to the EPA. Or if it's like I'm posting a component of a speech that I gave at a conference, it's also juxtaposed alongside like, in this time period, Climate Cardinals has like worked with this many people. We've translated this many words of information. So I think that both need to exist at the same time, but social media content creation can be a great medium to share things that you are actually doing with the world.
Yeah. You got to walk the walk, can't just post about it. You got to be actually doing the work. And, you are a perfect example of that, like doing the work. And kind of like related to that too, I'm really curious because just the amount of things that you're doing on top of being a student and being in one of the most emotionally taxing sectors of like any industry ever, the climate crisis, and dealing with all the complexities and just frankly disappointments of having to work in that sector. What are you like, how is your mental health? What are you doing to protect your own peace in such a chaotic, just not only life that you have, but I mean, United Nations, climate crisis, nonprofit, like these are all very emotionally taxing, industries. So what do you really do to like protect your peace and keep going strong?
Yeah, I know this is something me and you talked about on our iconic ride. But me and you are both like workaholics. Like we love what we do. We put so much time and energy into it, but because of that, it is really, really easy to burn out. And it's so important to set boundaries and also to just be attentive and listen to your own like body, I would say, in the sense that like this morning I woke up and I was like, okay, I have a piece set that's due tonight. I'm going to like wake up early and I'm going to do it. And I woke up early and I was like, I feel horrible. I'm super tired. And I went back to sleep and I was like, that's okay. Like I need to take care of myself and I'm going to do my piece set in the afternoon and evening and it's okay. It's going to get done. But it's like little things like that. Like in the past, I would have been like, I don't care that I feel shitty. I'm going to go drink a cup of coffee and I'm going to rally and I'm going to get it done. But now I'm so much better at like setting boundaries and also being like, listen, I don't care if my work doesn't get done by 8 p.m. I'm going to sleep. Like I need to sleep. I need to rest. I need to take care of myself. And I also need to hang out with my friends. Like, did I finish like the work I needed to do for Climate Cardinals? No, but I'm going to go to dinner. I'm going to spend time with my friends and then I'm going to save it for tomorrow. And so realizing that we put so much unnecessary pressure on ourselves, at least I do for sure. And having that ability now to set boundaries and to realize like taking care of myself and my own happiness is just as important as these other things that I'm doing has really been an important like mental mind shift for me. Am I still not really great at it? Yes, but I'm getting better and finding ways to like carve out things just like for fun, just like going out with my friends for dinner, just being a veg in bed and like binging a Netflix show, like things like that are so important. And I think we don't talk about it enough, especially as people who love our work and are workaholics, because you really can't be on and like chugging out stuff 24/7. Like the mind needs time to just be idle and to rest.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that makes me so happy to hear, because even just in comparison to Web Summit, which was not even that long ago, talking about it together, I remember both of us were just like, oh my God, it's too much. Burnout is happening. This is like intense. What are we going to do? And so-
oh my God, I felt horrible at Web Summit. I was so out of it. I literally was dying.
I remember you were like working, like doing like homework and all kinds of work outside of like the already time that we were spending, like doing the presentations and all that. Like you were in the throes of it. So to see that you've like come this far already is so cool. And I love that you talk about the importance of setting boundaries. I'm reading a book right now. It's called Set Boundaries, Find Peace. And a critical part of being able to set boundaries with yourself is body awareness and paying attention to the signs that your body is giving you, whether it's setting boundaries with a person and having to identify like, what is my body feeling in response to having to engage with this person, or, you know, them not respecting my boundaries, or if it's tiredness, exhaustion. You know, as workaholics, I think I know for me, I don't know about for you, there's an internal sense of self-pride that I think can come along with being like, I'm working nonstop. I'm pushing myself. I'm pulling all nighters, you know, go, go, go. The grind never stops. Yeah. That's very toxic. And it's completely ignoring your body's signals, being like, you know, you're going to die if you keep up this crazy work life. And binging Netflix shows, going out to dinner, like, while it seems kind of, you know, not important, like you said, that rest time and that social interaction, that, you know, peacefulness that you need to have mentally is just as important as the work that you are doing, and it'll sustain you, you know, longer.
Yeah. And I used to think the same thing, where I was like, okay, these like frivolous things can just be pushed off. Like I read this quote recently that was like, everything you're doing is like you're sacrificing your life for like delayed gratification that's never going to come. You know, like the things where people say like, just burn the candles. And I think about it so often, because I had this pair of shoes growing up that I had saved my refereeing money for. It was like this gorgeous pair of like Italian boots that was $200. That was like my entire refereeing check. I was obsessed with them. And I never wore them because they were so beautiful. I didn't want to ruin them. And when I finally wanted to wear them, I had outgrown them. And that to me is the perfect reminder of like, I'm only going to be 21 and in college once in my life. Like I'm going to blink and I'm going to be graduated and I'm going to be an old person. And so I need to enjoy being 21, like having cool friends, like being able to go out and enjoy myself, because I'm never going to have this opportunity again. And so that to me has been like that notion of like rest and enjoying yourself. Like that's just as important as doing work. And you feel inspired and you feel motivated. Like I feel so much happier and better positioned to do work now than I did at Web Summit, when I stupidly pulled an all-nighter, like finishing my midterm paper or something, and felt so out of it. Like that was a terrible decision. I should have just requested an extension. And so I think that we both, I am really glad, like, are learning to set boundaries and learning that like rest and self-care and enjoying yourself are just as important as these other like factors that we use to like determine our self-worth.
Yeah. Oh, I love that shoot metaphor. Thank you for sharing, because I think that perfectly describes it. And yes, exactly. I had the same wake up call where I'm recently was just like, oh my God, like I keep pushing myself. And this goes for anyone in life, with whatever job you're doing, with whatever things you're wanting to pursue that you're putting off. I had to, you know, really wake up and just be like, oh my God, I'm like 25 is gone. I'm never going to be 25 again. I'm only going to get older. And the older I get, the less things I'm going to be able to do. And the less I'm, might enjoy my body and, like what I am able to do. And like, I'm only this young for so long. I need to make sure that I'm resting. And I think that goes for everyone, not only in just resting, but also just, like taking time to do things that you love. And I'm so glad that you're doing that, because you are in a very chaotic industry and there's so much incredible things happening for you, but it can also be so stressful on the mental health and just on your life. So I'm so happy to hear that you are prioritizing yourself. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and talking about all of this. I know that you've had some of these conversations before, but I think for my audience and I think for people online, we need to have more youth activists talking about this in a way that I think it can be not only understood, but applied by normal everyday people like you and me, and not just in the spaces that you're making such an incredible difference, like the government and amongst world leaders and big companies. So I really appreciate you taking this time. Like, thank you so much. Where can people follow you on social media?
You're the sweetest. People can find me at Sophia Kianni on pretty much everything: Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. And similarly, I think it's awesome that you have used your platform to let people like me share my message, and that the fact that like even from the inception, you were all about climate and all about the environment and sustainability. It is such an important issue. It's going to be the defining issue of our lifetime, in my opinion. And so the more conversations we can have about it, the better, while also having conversations about rest and mental health that are just as important. And like, I always say that if you are not taking care of yourself, you can't take care of the planet. And I think that is very true in this context.
Yep. Oh, thank you. I appreciate the kind words. Like, seriously, you are doing incredible stuff. Everyone, go check out Climate Cardinals as well. I'll put information in the description box if you want to get involved, but definitely go support. And yeah, thank you again, Sophia, for coming on. Everyone, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the Justaposition YouTube channel so that you can see the videos there. Leave a comment letting us know what you thought of, this conversation. Like I said before, go follow her on social media. Tripping over my words. And this is a presentation of Cadence 13 on Odyssey Studio. New episodes out every Thursday, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And we'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.